Hello, everybody, and welcome to my studio. It is me, Gideon. I'm also known as Gideon Slack, and I'm your creatively fit coach. This week in my art journal, I played with the creative prompt of using autumn as my inspiration. So that is my challenge to you this week. You can use autumn as your inspiration. In your art journal, you can do anything you want. You can use any medium you want, and it can be as complex as a little landscape or as simple as drawing an autumn leaf or just filling a page with the colors of autumn. It does not need to be complicated. The whole idea of a creative practice is to help us to decompress and to compartmentalize and to process everything that is happening to us every day. And life can be rather challenging at this time, right? So, what better way to de stress and to just bring yourself into a moment of serenity of the present moment than to go to an art journal where there's no pressure to perform and to create a major piece of art, but simply to have fun, to explore, to experiment, and to see what will happen. My biggest question I ask when I come to my studio is what would happen if dot. This is so much fun to join you every Monday and to share with you a creative prompt. So this week I'm going to be using my watercolor again. I'm going to be finishing this page next week using watercolor, and then we'll jump into some other mediums. So next week will be our final prompt in this current small little series of watercolor, and that will be winter. So if you're new to my channel, hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on a single episode, and let's get into it. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome again to my studio. It is our weekly creative art prompt, and we are continuing on this journey that we are on in our art journal. Over the last 2 weeks, we did spring and we also did summer. I'm doing this all on one page, and today we come to autumn, so we're playing with a different color spectrum. I also already did my pre-sketch already. So this is what I have today. We have a pencil, we have an eraser. I'm going to be playing with my jelly roll pens just now. I've got a selection of watercolor brushes, and of course I have my masking tape with which I masked my page, and I also used just a ruler just to draw in a nice perspective on my paper. So it is Chinese New Year. Happy New Year, everyone. I really hope that this year of the dragon is only going to bring you good fortune and luck and happiness and good health. So that is my wish for you as I light a candle. And I've also brought some crystals along today just to inspire and to just bless you with some sparkly, beautiful goodies. Okay. So let's get into this very simple watercolor. It's really just all about trying out new things and experimenting a little bit and just having fun. So every week, because I'm doing currently, I've done this painting twice already. I've learned something from every little exercise, and last week was quite funny because the scale and proportion of these park benches were way off in my mind, and at one stage it started to look extremely ridiculous to me. So, it's great to just laugh at yourself and laugh at what you are creating, especially when you recognize that something can improve in some way, shape, or form. So it's okay, it's your art journal. Again, I remind everyone that your art journal is a place where you come with an attitude of playfulness and experimentation, and then you'll have lots of fun. You'll learn something, and you might also expand your, not might, you will definitely expand your skill set as an artist. There's no might in that, it's a definite guarantee. So really, my whole attitude is just to encourage you guys to begin to have a creative practice and just to see what it can do for you both mentally, emotionally, and also physically. I mean, it can be a way to deal with physical pain and also just to sort of get your mind off things that might be overwhelming you and just center yourself in the present moment and focus on just playing with color and expressing yourself. So, without any further ado, I'm gonna get into this sky. And remember, this isn't a professional watercolor paper that I'm working on. It's only art journal kind of thingamajig. So I just want to have some areas here where we have a little bit of blue sky. So I'm just pre-wetting my page a little bit so that there's a little bit of water on the page. And actually, I think I'm going to do it the other way around. And let's just see what happens, because I want to really bring in these autumn leaves today. And that must be my main focus, not the blue sky. So I'm just pre-wetting my page, and I've pre-mixed some colors ranging from my yellows all the way to some bright oranges. So I'm just going to start and just use my color that I've got here on my page, and let's just begin to talk a little bit about these autumn leaves. My mixture is quite thin, so it reminds me of tea, and tea kind of strength is nice and watery and juicy, so it can dispense beautifully onto your pre-wetted page. It's okay if some areas is a little bit stronger or warmer or darker, because our leaves will have a variety of shades, right? And again, I'm quite mindful to leave this middle zone a bit lighter. I don't want to cover everything up with exactly the same shade. Let's jump to a nice orange as well. And I'm just going to drop this in and just pull some of these. I'm using the toe of my brush. So when I say I drop in color, I pick up color from my color well, and I just gently dance over the page with my paint, and I just allow the tip of the brush to make contact with the paper. And wherever there is water, the paint will flow a little bit more, and wherever there is dry paper, you will have a little bit of a harder edge. That's pretty. Let's get into some brighter orange or darker orange. This will be a little bit deeper. I really love fall, especially in the northern hemisphere. I'm reminded of like Canada with their beautiful trees that go all of these beautiful warm colors in autumn, and it really is quite spectacular. You guys are very blessed with autumn. Here in South Africa, autumn, is very dull. It's very yellow. Um, it's not a very, how shall I put it, colorful season, but maybe in its own way. Mother Nature does give us beauty all over. So, what does autumn look like in your area? And why don't you drop me a comment, or even better, why don't you join my Creative Heart group on Facebook and share it on our Throwback Thursday photo day, where I encourage you guys to share some photographs with me that we can use as reference material. That's always helpful, because you guys are on there and you've given us permission to share it and to use it as art reference. It really is great to sort of begin to build our own little library of photographs that we can play with. That's really pretty. I quite like that. I think I'm gonna let that dry and see what that sort of gives me. But while we have a little bit of wetness there, I just want to use a dry brush and just come in and pick up some of the very, very deep pools of paint. And a thirsty brush is a dry brush. So the dry brush is then absorbing the water without picking up too much of the paint. I just don't want deep pools of color because that can take a minute to dry, especially on paper that's not meant to deal with a lot of water like this. And then again, I've got my trusty little salt moment here. So I've just got some fine salt here, and I'm just going to use a little bit of the salt on this area that I've just painted by sprinkling it on there. And the salt will help me to draw some of the pigment towards itself, and it will obviously dry in different speeds. And then what it will do is it will create beautiful little textured effects that sort of adds to this whole vibe of leaves that is hanging in the tree without having to paint every single detail. Okay, now let's switch to our pathway. And again, I'm going to go for a very soft peachy color. Now, last week I felt it was too orange. So let me learn from that. I'm going to just play with a little bit of this gold. And let's bring in a little pathway here. And again, I'm not going to worry about the benches because they are going to be dark and we're going to paint over them. So in watercolor, especially in your first stages of painting, you sort of want to look at an entire zone that you are painting instead of immediately trying to bring in a lot of detail. So if an entire area is going to have a base color of something like this pathway, then paint that entire area and just give it a good foundation. But start off light, start off with a tea-like consistency in your paint so that it's not immediately extremely intense. It obviously all depends on your reference material. Now I'm going to mix some of this yellow ochre because in autumn, especially here in South Africa, the grass can be quite brown and gold and it's busy dying. It's not green anymore, but there might still be areas where it's green. So I'm going to go ahead and give this grass-like area a bit of a wash. Oh, I'm using a bigger brush here because I want to do this quickly. I've gone over the line, but you know what? That's okay. We can go over the line. We add a drop of water. This is a bit more towards the creamy side of our mixture, so it's a little bit thicker. Just focusing on my perspective here so that I don't lose everything. I find watercolor can be quite expressive. And fun. You can add a lot of detail with watercolor if that's your thing. If you want photo serialism, you can really use watercolor to create amazing realistic paintings, especially botanicals. That's an excellent medium for botanicals. All right, so I'm just going to come in with a wet brush and just add a little bit of texture. And around these trees, let's just talk a little bit about some grasses. There's no paint on my brush. I'm just using a brush that's slightly damp, and I'm just bringing in a little bit of texture and movement. Because it's slightly damp, it's going to move the paint as it dries and give me a little bit of a texture there. Okay. Awesome. You can also lift a little bit of color. That's another thing you can do. If it's still damp, you can always just press down and just lift a little bit of color, especially in this zone where I want it not to necessarily be too dark. Remember, with watercolor, you can only go darker. You can't go lighter. Once you've got a certain tone or depth on your paper, you can only go darker from there, unless you're going to lift color. Now remember, I'm working on some art journal paper. It's not watercolor paper, so lifting must be done to a minimum, because I could scar the paper and then that would damage the fiber of the paper, and then that's where the eye will be drawn, and I don't want to disturb the fiber of the paper at all. Alrighty then, let's look at our leaves. That's still drying, and our grass is still damp. So I guess what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause the Right, you guys, I am just so impressed with this little autumn scene. I think it's lovely. So I want to encourage you to use this week's prompt, which was autumn, and to create a little page in your art journal. Remember to take a photograph and share it with me on the Creative Heart. There are links in the description of this video for you to use. And if you're new here, welcome. Remember to hit that subscribe button. And this is a playlist of weekly creative art prompts on a Monday afternoon for you to enjoy. So I hope you're going to join me on this journey, because we are going to be exploring a lot this year. But currently we are playing with our watercolors. So next week we're going to finish up this page. We will be doing our winter little scene here. And as I move my candle to the side, this is going to be exciting, because then the moment will finally arrive where I'll be able to pull off the masking tape and we'll be able to look at all 4 of the seasons on one page. That is definitely an inspiration. So I also want to whisper in your ear that in March, I'm gonna be doing a whole unicorn class with my Patreons, and that is always exciting. I've got an enormous unicorn that normally hangs in my studio that will maybe make a comeback and say hello to you guys. And I will show you guys how to paint a unicorn, and we will do that in acrylic, and we'll be playing with that theme during the month of March. So if you're interested to dive a little bit deeper with me into this creative practice, then use the links in the description of this video and join my Patreon page. It's only $5 a month and there is plenty of exclusive content for you to dive into. In fact, if you want to see all the details of this video that you are watching now on YouTube, you'll have to join my Patreon to see it all and listen to all of the advice that I give. So thanks again for watching, stay creative, and I'll see you guys again next week for another episode of The Creative Heart. Okay, bye bye for now.